In the darkness of the night, we look out. Children in an age-old universe. We try to find the man in the moon and search for meaning in the stars. We look for answers. We look for life, perhaps not as we know it. A world away, or is it?
What I saw was real. It was damn real.
Over the last 50 years, reports of UFOs and of encounters with extraterrestrial beings have reached astronomical proportions. Can these reports be explained as hoaxes?
It was quite easy to reproduce these pictures.
As natural phenomena? Are secret military craft being confused with UFOs?
I've seen a silver flying dome in the sky that was unidentifiable.
Are these sightings all in our minds? Or is there intelligent life beyond us? And are aliens closer than we think? We have long been intrigued by the notion of life on other planets, and our popular culture has been filled with images of UFOs for decades. But the first widespread documented sightings of UFOs in the real world came in the closing months of World War II.
The sightings we saw were, I think, were in about in the 44, in November or December then. We'd see these balls of light that would fly off the wings of our airplane. The one I saw was like a white light. A lot of the other people reporting in it saw old red lights, and some of them would see some green lights, and some of them reported that they would try to chase one while they never could catch it.
We would turn into it, and it would turn with us. And we'd turn away from it, and it would still turn with us. And I put my gun sights on, trying to get on it, but I never could.
We flew the British Mosquito, which was capable of 450 knots, and we opened it up a number of times and tried to close with it, and we never came anywhere close to it.
The pilots dubbed these unidentified flying objects Foo Fighters, but still don't know if they were German secret weapons, optical illusions, or something else entirely.
I think the book is open on whether it was imagination, hallucination, or really extraterrestrial or German ground-controlled object, but I haven't seen anything in 50 years that changed the perception of what they were other than unidentified flying objects.
Two years after the end of World War II in Washington State, a private pilot named Kenneth Arnold reported seeing peculiar-looking aircraft near Mount Rainier. The craft appeared to wobble and flip and were flying faster than any Arnold had ever seen. Word of this sighting was spread by the press, and the term flying saucers was coined. Although life in post-war America seemed tranquil enough, such reports of unidentified flying objects began to multiply. Were these UFOs Soviet reconnaissance planes? Could this explain their apparent presence around U.S. military bases? Fear began to emerge. Atomic secrets could be at risk. national security at stake. Given their potential significance, UFO reports and rare films from witnesses did not go to the police or scientists. Rather, for 22 years, they were collected as part of Project Blue Book for Air Force investigation. The head of the project explained why.
First of all, to try to determine if the UFO phenomena presents a threat to the security of the United States. And second, to determine if the UFO phenomena exhibits any technological advances which could be channeled into research and development.
Finally, in 1969, the files were closed. The Air Force conclusion? No threat and poor data.
They looked at 3,201 sightings. They categorized every single one. They did a quality evaluation of every single one. And what they found was 21% of the 3,201 cases that they examined had to be listed as unknowns, completely separate and distinct from the 10% that were listed as insufficient information. They found that the better the quality of the sighting, the more likely to be an unknown. And yet, what did the Secretary of the Air Force say to the public? He said that on the basis of this report, we believe that no objects such as those popularly described as flying saucers have overflown the United States.
Still, many remained unconvinced by the official government findings, and their disbelief seemed to find support for a time in 1987. It was then that British researcher Tim Good laid his hands on a briefing document which was addressed to President-elect Dwight D. Eisenhower and dated November 1952. The papers appear to reveal the U.S. government's clandestine recovery of aliens after the 1947 crash of an airborne object in New Mexico. Those in charge of the recovery were called the Majestic 12. According to this document, a local rancher reported finding a flying saucer that had crashed 75 miles northwest of Roswell Army Airfield. During the recovery, 4 dead aliens were supposedly found. Their remains were allegedly removed and sent to several different locations to be analyzed.
There was no question that the importance of these documents was monumental. I mean, nothing like it before had surfaced.
It's dynamite. Proves there are flying saucers, alien visitors, the whole business. The implication is, 1, Earth is being visited by extraterrestrial spacecraft. 2, the government has known not only that that is true in the abstract, but has had pieces of wreckage and bodies of extraterrestrials since at least 1947.
But not everyone was as sure.
Within about 10 minutes of seeing the documents, based upon my research into UFO documents up to that time, I knew these things weren't real.
Among the documents Tim Good received was a memorandum from President Truman to his Secretary of Defense. Critics claim that his signature is identical to that on another document, a problem for document analysts.
Now, anyone familiar with forensic document analysis knows that a person signing their name never signs it twice in the exact same way. And that suggested to us that the signature from the later genuine non-UFO document was cut out by the forger and pasted onto this false executive order to lend an air of authenticity to it.
They say the signature on there is identical to another signature from a different memo, which I found in the first place. I say if you hold them up to a light table, they are clearly not identical.
Regardless, though Tim Good admits the letter itself may be a fabrication, he does not dismiss the information contained within.
I am convinced that whoever fabricated that document, if it was fabricated, must have had inside knowledge. There's no way it could be otherwise. And there's no question that the Majestic 12 papers have indeed pointed people in the right direction. And I think essentially the information contained therein is accurate.
Eventually, to get a more complete overview of government documentation regarding UFOs, the Citizens Against UFO Secrecy went to court. The National Security Agency, however, tried to block them.
We filed for the 21-page above top secret affidavit. The judge had referenced it in his finding, and we eventually got it. The only trouble is, as you start to go through it, you find that it's blacked out, and pretty soon all blacked out. 75% of the document isn't there, and people say, scrape away the black, there's nothing underneath. They Xerox it first.
The cover-up alone is proven by the released documents, released by agencies such as the FBI, who denied any involvement in UFO research until the Freedom of Information Act showed that they'd been lying. They released 1,100 pages of documents. CIA denied any interest in the subject. Suddenly we have now, I would think, thousands of pages of UFO-related information dating back to the 1940s, which quite clearly indicates that there has been a cover-up.
Certainly, the private Center for UFO Studies thinks there is validity to UFO work. Over 100,000 cases are archived there.
I am convinced by over 20 years of work in this field that there is a mysterious phenomenon occurring that is being neglected by science, not by the public, but by science. And it's to science's detriment that it's doing so.
Still, in other parts of the world, some scientific studies are being done on UFOs. In March 1990, in the former Soviet Union, fighter planes scrambled to investigate pulsing lights northeast of Moscow. For 3.5 hours, they stalked the lights, which moved at speeds up to 3,000 miles an hour. No radar image appeared on the screens of ground stations, but photographs were taken, and thermal imaging produced results. For the Chief of Air Defense Forces, these secret results were proof enough of UFOs.
Though journalists are asking if there are other sightings, these 1990 cases were only one supported by evidence. This is the only case for which there is real proof.
Nor was it ever considered that the sighting was that of a stealth bomber.
We never thought it was an American stealth aircraft. The radar characteristics are not the same. Stealth behaves like a plane in terms of speed and maneuverability. UFOs are very different.
The unwritten rule: do not fire on UFOs.
As far as official instructions are concerned, we in air defense have certain unwritten rules that mean we do not fire at UFOs.
From 1977 on, an official Soviet Ministry of Defense study has collected hundreds of reports of UFOs, reportedly to gain alien technology for military use. Their files list many cases. In one case, a pilot reported finding a light closing in on him, at which point his aircraft went into rapid descent. Though he landed safely, there was damage to the left wing. Never before seen in the West, this amateur footage purports to show a UFO over the parliament in Vilnius, capital of Lithuania. The craft hovers noiselessly, appearing to land. dawn. We have long been intrigued by the notion of life on other planets, and our popular culture has been filled with images of UFOs for decades. In the darkness of the night, we look out. Children in an age-old universe. We try to find the man in the moon and search for meaning in the stars. We look for answers. We look for life, perhaps not as we know it. A world away, or is it?
What I saw was real.
But the first widespread documented sightings of UFOs in the real world came in the closing months of World War II.
The sightings we saw were, I think, were in about in the 44 and November or December then. We'd see these balls of light that would fly off the wings of our
craft being confused with UFOs.
I've seen a silver flying dome in the sky that was unidentifiable.
Are these sightings all in our minds, or is there intelligent life beyond us, and are aliens closer than we think?
It was damn real.
Over the last 50 years, reports of UFOs and of encounters with extraterrestrial beings have reached astronomical proportions. Can these reports be explained as hoaxes?
It was quite easy to reproduce these pictures.
As natural phenomena? Are secret military